busy over reading.
I'd like to call our meeting to order, Finance Committee, February 21st. Public comment that is otherwise not scheduled to be discussed today. Seeing none. We have minutes from the 6th and the 13th. Can I ask for a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to go into a discussion on our island home. We have Dick Webb here. I see Rachel is also here and other town folks. And then Andrew and the planning board, if you will indulge us to get through that, and then we'll tackle the zoning stuff. Would be appreciated. So we're going to begin. I am recusing myself, so whoever's taking notes, please make sure that that's noted. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Stephen, our vice chair.
Thank you, David. Dick, will you make a brief presentation for us about what the estimates that went into the work that you've put in that led to the estimate for the cost to construct the facility at the new location, and maybe a brief background about what the new iteration of the plan is, including the parcels of land adjacent to the Sherburne Commons facility that are included? You do. Thank you.
Good evening. Good afternoon. Yes, very briefly, I have handed out two packages of information. First, larger site plans and architectural plans, and the second one more financial. So I'll start with the site plans. The site that has been identified is the portion of existing Sherburne Commons property on the west side of the existing Sherburne Commons facility, oriented toward Myacomet Road. There was insufficient land in that area that was not impacted by some other archaeological sensitive areas. So the site plan now includes site development that is not only located on a portion of the existing Sherburne Commons property, but also on a portion of property to be acquired from the abutters, the Howard parcel, what is known as the Howard parcel. The Howard parcel in total is 4.4 acres. The proposed Sherburne Commons, or the proposed island home facility, impacts about 2.57 acres of the 4.4 acres. There remain two parcels abutting Myacomet Road that would, as we understand, would be retained by the Howard parcel. The plan itself, as you scroll through the packet, there are some architectural plans further in your packet. They essentially detail a 40-unit facility. Each of them is a small house model sort of facility, which essentially creates single private rooms with individual bathrooms for all the residents, and they are grouped around a common family living area. So there are 10 residents that are in each of these homes, and again, the common living area includes a living room, dining area, a kitchen, and it's very specifically designed to reflect the home atmosphere of a residential sort of environment. This is not commercial kitchen and that sort of context at all. This is very, very much home atmosphere, residential environment. The second sheet of paper that you have, dated January 6th, focuses on the project cost for the project. The new construction, it is proposed as a single-story facility. New construction totals just under 35,000 square feet. What we did, our architects, our mechanical, electrical, structural, all our engineers prepared a packet, what we call a design narrative for construction, for estimating. So this design narrative was sent to D.G. Jones, an independent cost estimator, to assist us, again, at this very conceptual level, to assist us in the determination of the cost. I do want to highlight also that D.G. Jones was the independent cost estimator who was on our team for the intermediate school project. And we fed D.G. Jones the formal bid numbers from the school project so that they could estimate with more historical accuracy in terms of what we call this, for lack of a better word, I'll call it the island factor. Because that was a big point of discussion between the two estimators on the school project, trying to quantify what this number was. So we fed that historical data to D.G. Jones. So these numbers reflect a higher Nantucket construction cost factor than the school did because of what was historically bid for the school project. Soft costs are also included here. The architectural and engineering fees, this project being of a magnitude where an OPM will be required for the project. We've also listed fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, and that includes, again, all the fixtures, furnishing, equipment, includes tel data, security, those sorts of line items. The site investigation and testing includes many efforts that need to be done at the preliminary part of the project, including survey, including completion of archaeological work, natural heritage components to this project as well, and then lastly some administrative fees. We've included two contingencies, the owner's contingency and a construction contingency, and as you can see, the total is listed as just under $30 million. This cost does not include any cost of property acquisition. I should point out that the original D.G. Jones construction cost estimate is escalated at 4% per annum to the midpoint of construction. I'm available to answer any questions. I tried to, Mr. Vice Chairman, be as brief as I could.
I appreciate that. Do these estimates include any mitigation for or any potential fines or other fees that the town might incur for having to replace habitat somewhere else?
They don't involve fees for habitat mitigation. No, they do not. They involve more the process of going through the permit, but not the actual mitigation.
All of the investigation and the permitting, but not any potential mitigation.
Correct.
Okay. And this is the cost for the 40-bed facility for the 4 wings. Although you have contemplated and you're cited, the facility's been cited on this plan for a potential 5th wing.
Yes, it is. This estimate is based on the 34,000 square feet, which represents the 40 homes, single floor construction, slab on grade. Yes.
So I'll just note for the record, and for people who haven't had the chance to review, that there are significant operational savings to be had with this new facility. So we do have 2 work groups, the Island Home Building Work Group, and then I don't know what the other, Cliff, what's the name of the other work group?
The Island Home Work Group.
The Island Home Work Group.
Versus
Yep.
From town meeting, I guess.
So there's lots of people working feverishly to bring this to town meeting, and hopefully all of the necessary homework will have been done in time to get approval at town meeting and then at the ballot box thereafter. This is, as Peter and I saw firsthand a few weeks ago, the current facility is in dire need of immediate repair, some of which will need to be done whether or not this facility moves forward. But it really isn't a long-term solution for a host of reasons. But it's imperative that this moves forward. Hopefully we can, again, have the work done in time for the approvals in April. Is there any, Cliff?
This doesn't include the extra land, right? That's a separate purchase.
Cliff, the land acquisition costs are excluded, yes.
And do we have any idea rule, ballpark on what acquiring that land might cost the town?
Joe,
Is sort of current, okay.
That's been negotiated, right? Yeah.
Oh, it has?
Yeah.
Okay.
Further questions? No. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
David, come on back.
And I was thinking of setting a limit on how long you could talk about this.
Apparently, everybody's convinced that the project needs to move forward, and that's that.
Anyway, great, thank you. Next on our agenda, we're going to review and discuss planning board motions. Andrew, are you going to lead us in that? Sure. Okay, great. And I think we all have them sent to us, and Leslie, I think you provided them. Thank you very much.
So everybody has your map packet to follow along? Anybody need one? And just to... For Rick, do you have? And just to let you know, two of our planning board members, Barry Rector, the chairman, and Nat Lowell are here if you have any questions for individual members. So I guess we'll start out with 38. This is a map change. And I'll try to remember to let you know which ones are citizens and which ones are sponsored by the planning board. This is a planning board sponsored article. This is, like many of the articles, is related to the master plan, and hopefully you're at least familiar with the master plan. It's online for you to access it and read it. Two of the important parts of the master plan are phasing out the residential commercial district and the residential commercial 2 district, replacing it with either appropriate residential replacements or more tailored commercial districts in their place. So this first one is a change from residential commercial to residential old historic, and it basically focuses on Still Dock and Old North Wharf. The reason here is that this is primarily a residential area, so it's a commercial to residential change, which reflects the existing character of this wharf neighborhood. So this has been closed. It has a positive recommendation from the planning board. The next article is essentially a commercial area of the wharfs. It's basically Straight Wharf and I think it's Old South Wharf. These are predominantly commercial areas of the waterfront. These would go to the commercial downtown district. So again, it's commercial to commercial, matching the existing character. Andrew? Yes.
Just a quick nit of a question. On 38,
Yes.
there was a difference in the various lots defined.
Oh, yeah.
From one to this, from the what do you call it, the first draft to the
Yep.
proposed draft, where there's a bunch of commercial wharf things stricken out. Can you just comment on that?
Right. We took out the area over at Commercial Wharf and Washington Street for further consideration. There was some, I guess, conflicting opinions over there over some different proposals. So 2 years ago, we proposed to put that into the commercial downtown district, and they said, oh, no, we don't like that. We would rather be residential. So now we propose the residential, and now they said, oh, no, we don't like that. We want commercial. So we're hoping to get that worked out by the next town meeting. Rick? As part of a related article, the next one is dealing with the Harbor Overlay District, which is outlined. Unfortunately, the R of the draft kind of obscures this a little bit, but the existing boundary of the Harbor Overlay is essentially waterfront properties, and it doesn't cover some of the properties that are actually affected by Chapter 91 filled tidelands that are basically internal. So this would expand that boundary and include those internal properties in the Harbor Overlay District. That's important for many of these properties who need to get their Chapter 91 licensing. They can't get them right now because they don't meet the state's criteria, especially where you need to grant some sort of waterfront access, and these internal parcels really can't do that. They don't have it. So this is something that the neighbors there have been asking for some time, and I think this will help them get their situation under control. It will also extend some significant controls on these properties through the town.
What does that mean they can't get their Chapter 91 licensing?
They're ineligible to get it because they can't provide the waterfront access that's a requirement of that program. And there was an amnesty date that is already closed for them. So if you have a landlocked property, you can't really give a waterfront access easement to anybody. So the properties are not properly licensed, and that frequently comes up during a sale, or banks won't lend on them unless they have it.
I think I'm unclear what the benefit of the license. What's the requirement for these owners to have that license?
To have a Chapter 91 license?
Yeah.
To say that they legitimately built on filled tidelands of the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
The next article was a single property proposed to go from CN to CDT. This was an NIR property. They have asked that this not move forward, and so this has a no action from the planning board. It's on the corner of C Street and South Beach. The next article is the property known as the former Craig property on Sparks Avenue, Pleasant Street, bounded by Sanford Road. This would extend the commercial mid-island district to this property. It's a commercial district now, and it would join its neighbors basically to the east and north that are already in CMI. Part of this, we had a discussion with the owners of this property, which is, or the lessors of this property, which is a Stop and Shop group, and they have pledged to, if housing is involved in this, to use the workforce housing guidelines to basically add additional workforce rentals in the event it's developed. And this has a positive recommendation from the planning board. The next article is a property on Orange Street. I think it's the old Spouter Gallery. The owner asked that the CMI be extended across Orange Street to include their property. One concern that was raised was about the height, whether the owner was seeking this designation to increase the height there. They do not want that, and they're willing to enter into an agreement with the town to restrict that. And this has a positive recommendation from the planning board.
And would that restriction run with the land, or does it expire? Or how?
No, it would run with the land. The next one is a change from RC to CN, and this is on the Boys and Girls Club and a property at the corner of Williams and Pleasant. It's a commercial to commercial rezoning. Commercial neighborhood is appropriate for this district in terms of a gradual scale down away from the commercial mid-island designation. We've spoken to the Boys and Girls Club. They have some plans of how this district will help them add some additional housing. So this has a positive recommendation from the planning board. The next article, which is property owned by the hospital at the corner of Atlantic, Sparks Avenue. This was agreed to as part of the exchange of land with the hospital, the Paper Street Exchange, where the hospital can provide land to the town to construct the roundabout at this location, and the CN district will allow them to preserve their existing housing in a conforming arrangement. This has a positive recommendation. Next article is a change from RC to CN, commercial to commercial, at the Nantucket Inn property. This is a single property change, which again is part of the phase out of RC to CN. This has a positive recommendation. The next article is a citizen article. It is a residential to commercial proposal from R20 to commercial neighborhood at the corner of Old South Road and Macy Lane. The planning board has not made a recommendation on this article yet. There's been some discussion with the property owner about limitations of curb cuts and actually correcting an encroachment of the roadway onto the property that so far have not been productive. So don't know where that will go.
Do you have a date when you're going to
March
fix your
6th.
cut pay with this?
Yep, March 6th. That's it. The next article is, again, part of the RC2 phase-out. So this is a commercial to residential zone. It's the Park Circle properties. These are all residential properties, and this R5 is the basically the residential equivalent to RC2. That has a positive recommendation from the planning board. The same principle is on the next article, again, from commercial to residential for residentially used properties in the Nobody Farm Road area. Those are shown on your map. It has a positive recommendation. The next article is an RC2 to CMI, so it's commercial to commercial. It infills several parcels that were left out of the commercial Mid-Island district last year. There's a group on Hanneby Lane and where the new laundry for NIR is proposed on Old South Road. So positive recommendation. The next article is a commercial to commercial rezoning, excuse me, RC2 to CTEC. This covers the Teasdale Circle area. This is a mixed-use zone which allows residences and commercial on larger lots than 5,000. So CTEC has a minimum of 10,000 square feet, which matches the area here. This article has a positive recommendation. Same principle here for an area that we talked about a little bit earlier, which is south of Old South Road, where a portion of this property is going to CTEC and a portion is going to commercial industrial. This is basically airport and commercial related property as it shows on the map. You can see the difference on the map on the right. And that is a positive recommendation. The next one is RC2 to R40. This is a series of oversized properties on the west side of Nobody Farm Road where there's existing schools and clubs that are on larger lots. So basically this changes this to a residential zone, again a lower intensity zone where these uses are allowed, but it does not allow the same 5,000 square foot density of RC2. This has a positive recommendation.
Andrew, why did you, is the carve out here because the use of that property wouldn't fit in the new zone?
Yes, that was done at the request of that property owner who had some limited commercial options that basically wouldn't fit in R40 to give him a chance to get those properly permitted.
Great.
And that joins some other RC2 on the other side. The Pinecrest area is an important change that has taken 11 years to come together, but that's okay. We had our first meeting with this group of neighbors about that time and asked them to come up with a proposal to reduce the overall density here and phase out the RC2. So their proposal is basically to zone, you can see the area outlined in purple, to R5, which matches the surrounding properties on Marianne. R10, which covers the area in blue, which covers basically the clear residential portion, and CTEC, which allows a mixed use of on-site commercial and single-family homes. So This was a great breakthrough. They agreed to some additional restrictions that keep the overall density of the center part at R20 instead of RC2. So we thank them for their work on getting this done, and there's 100% support from this area. Next area is a change, RC2 to R5, Knobsco Way, Appleton Road, and Essex Road. This area has been the site of a lot of rezoning by the planning board of formerly commercial areas into residential zones. We had quite a bit of testimony on this area, and the planning board's decided to move forward with essentially half of Knobsco Way, leaving some properties for future discussion. So the map on the right-hand side shows that some of them, but it doesn't reflect the full extent of the properties that have been removed. So basically, planning board needs to take a final vote on this, but we're heading towards, again, the eastern half would go to R5. The western half for now would be left in RC2 for a future discussion. The next group is at the end of Essex Road, so this is a commercial to commercial rezoning. When Essex Road was approved before the planning board, the end lots, I think there's 8 of them, were allowed to stay in commercial, and many of the owners bought with that understanding and have actually planned their buildings and uses around some low level of commercial like offices and home-based businesses. So that area is closest to the CN district, and that has a positive recommendation from the planning board. Okay, so in your map book, the next is the Sherburne Commons group, which is actually comes up earlier. It comes up as Article 17. And we're still working on a final designation here. What we're doing here is basically phasing out the ALC district and rezoning the site as a combination of R40 and commercial neighborhood. And then that does include the Howard property, which is on My Comet Road, which would go out of its LUG2 designation. There's a companion action which changes this from the country overlay district to the town overlay district. And again, we're not clear on the final boundaries of that, but I believe there will be a positive recommendation from the board on that. The next article, LUG2 to R40 at 3 at South Shore Road. This was a citizens article to change the zoning of properties at the southern end of South Shore Road, closest to where the treatment facility is. This has a negative recommendation from the planning board. Basically, they found the existing character was consistent with both the Pondview neighborhood and the properties across the street. This area is used for agricultural and horses and things like that. So basically, this was not recommended to move forward.
This is number 59. Just make sure.
Let's see, these maps don't have the article. What's that? This is 58?
58, thanks.
The next one, 3 South Shore Road. There's a citizen article to rezone this from LUG2 to R40, and a companion article to extend the town overlay district to a rear portion of the property. This was discussed in 2015. This property is directly south of the Housing Authority property and surrounded by higher density. The planning board has given this a positive recommendation. There are some rare plants and other issues that will drive this towards a cluster type subdivision, which the board supports. And again, this has a positive recommendation. So article number, Leslie, what? Evergreen? Okay, so Article 60, a citizen article to zone 3 properties from LUG 2 to R40. The board has considered this area twice before and has supported a transitional zone between the more dense R20 area to the north, the lower density to the south. This has a positive recommendation from the board. Essentially the same area except on the southern side of Evergreen. The board has given a positive recommendation to the citizen article to change from LUG 2 to LUG 1. The next article, which is a citizen article to change from R20 and LUG 2 to LUG 1, the board does not have a recommendation on this article yet. The sponsor has not been present to discuss this. And again, we'll have a final vote on this on the 6th. The next citizen article, also an LUG 2 to LUG 1 on Monahans Road and at the end of Okoro, would extend the LUG 1 district over 3 properties, 2 that currently are pre-existing non-conforming and would become conforming to LUG 1, and 1 that is basically an odd-shaped lot near where the airport is. This is a subset of an article the board considered in the past, and they have given this a positive recommendation. Next one is this Article 60. This is West Myacomet Road. 64 is a citizen article to rezone a single property from LUG 3 to LUG 2. The planning board has given this a negative recommendation. This is a spot zone. There's no surrounding LUG 2 here in the area, and the board cannot give this a positive recommendation as submitted. The final map change article involves split zones where a lot has pieces of it in different zoning districts. This is frequently a problem for interpretation and setbacks, trying to figure out. It adds a layer of complexity that we try to avoid whenever we can. So the first property is off of Squam Road. It's an L-shaped property. It has a significant amount of wetlands, and 2 pieces of it are in LUG 1, and the other part is in LUG 3. The proposal is to bring the entire property to LUG 1. The final group on the map is at the end of Hummock Pond Road. You can see that there's basically a line sort of going through all the properties. Part are in R20, part are in LUG 2. And we propose to put all of these in a country overlay district called Village Residential, which will end the split zone and also solve the problem of the R20 zone outside of the district. So those are the map changes. Leslie's going to help me discuss the text if we want to get into that. Any questions on maps before we move on?
Andrew, could you just touch briefly on a couple of these citizens articles where owners want to take a large lot and make it smaller, increasing density?
Yep.
How does a planning board tend to approach those? And especially considering over the last couple of town meetings, we end up with arguments in both directions, right? We want more density. Oh, I want my children to have a lot. I mean, how do you tend to approach them, and what sort of rules do you follow to either support or not support those sort of articles?
Well, the board's here too, and they can answer, but I can tell you that in general, we look at the surrounding, what's the situation of the surrounding zone. It's, usually we look for a transition, so it's basically a half acre to 1 acre to 2 acres, so there's a graduation somehow. We look for whether there's water and sewer available. We look for whether it matches the town or country overlay district. In general, an LUG 2 lot, an 80,000 square foot lot, lots over 40,000 are considered to be somewhat exclusive in terms of it's been viewed as somewhat of a way to keep housing out. So There are certain areas of the island that are perfectly acceptable for 2 and 3 acres, basically rural areas without the services, without roads, far away. But I think clearly the location of many of these lots at the edges has influenced the planning board's look at them. So, and you see that some were approved and some were not approved. So,
Thank you.
okay. So the text, articles, I guess start at 66, is that right? 66. 66 was is a citizen article. It's created by Linda Holland, and she did have some staff assistance on that because she had asked for it, and we had at least provided the outline to this. This is the article that would require affordable lots and affordable units under certain conditions. The board has made a recommendation to refer this to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for further study and development of a recommendation if possible. We don't know that this actual formula is really salvageable, but there are inclusionary bylaws that might be considered in the future, but this one is not one of them. '67 is another article submitted by Mrs. Holland on residential housing size, which would incorporate certain limits. The board basically did not support this article, and we've received some data from our assessor that really, I guess, would say that we don't have certainly the same problem that the Vineyard has, if anyone has saw that movie about the house size over there. Our houses, have not really reached the large level or the large size. Many of the existing houses that are this large are older houses, many in the old historic district. So anyway, we're not seeing the same kind of problem here, and the board did not support this article as submitted. So this has a negative recommendation. Anybody want to add? No? Okay. 68 is a pretty straightforward article. It modifies 2 dimensions in the zoning bylaw. One, it increases the minimum frontage in the RC district from 40 to 50 feet. RC, we are phasing that out, and 50 feet is a minimum statewide. So it's a statewide minimum district. We see no reason to keep it the 40. Becomes another reason to say why you don't want to change from RC, Rick. And the other is to change the setback requirement in CI. We've had some owners that want to work together and create basically a 0 lot line. Since many of the buildings in CI are masonry buildings, that's what you need to meet the building code. So this would allow a 0 lot line in the industrial district only, which is the area like out at Coffin Pit and some of those places where a 5-foot setback isn't really that critical. '69 is a citizen article. It would basically dealing with swimming pools in the village residential area of Nantucket, in all village residential. So any village residential district. The planning board changed this from a prohibition to a special permit. So in the village residential, you would need to apply for a special permit. There are some additional dimensional requirements, like a 20-foot setback, and the lot must meet or exceed the minimum lot size. So undersized lots that are only 50 or so feet wide are not going to qualify for pools. So otherwise you would have to get a special permit that will bring a public hearing and a site-by-site assessment. The zoning board would be the special permit granting authority in this case.
Could you refresh us on what the village residential districts are?
So right now, the main one is in Nantucket. It's basically the central part of the older area of Nantucket. There's a small area in Monomoy, and there would be the area that we're just rezoning down on Hummock Pond Road.
And so the town of Wisconsin and Nantucket are not village residential, they're old historic district?
Correct.
designation. And how about Quidnet?
Not yet. It's an area that we've studied for maybe eventual inclusion in village residential, but it's not there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Article 70, also a citizen article that would extend the village height overlay district to basically include all of Nantucket, and it's partly about the concern of additional density being opened there. This has a positive recommendation from the planning board, so it would extend the 25-foot height limit throughout basically all of the Nantucket area. Article 71, a citizen article prohibiting basically private helipads. This is a current topic and has a positive recommendation from the planning board. 72, rear lot subdivisions. This would allow the planning board to issue a special permit in lieu of a subdivision where a small road serving one lot is proposed to be created. So there's basically some conditions that have to be met. So it would substitute a 20-foot, basically a 20-foot access for a single-purpose road. We're finding that many of these roads that serve one lot essentially are the quality of a driveway, yet they come off the tax roll. They kind of confuse things and aren't really necessary. So this would allow basically an alternative to that. And it's allowed in only certain districts. It's not allowed in ROH and not allowed in some of the larger LUG2 or LUG3. So the mid-area zones only. 73 is Moreland Management District, and this is basically some minor corrections that Leslie is famous for, about clarifying, taking away some references that no longer exist and some duplicative language. So there's really nothing that substantive here, and this has a positive recommendation. 74 is, this clarifies secondary lots where you create, it clarifies some problems of interpretation where we talk about a tertiary dwelling when in fact there's really a secondary dwelling that meets tertiary standards when a covenant lot is created. So this clarifies that for our personnel. And 75 is technical amendments. Leslie, anything of especially you want to? This includes some new definitions that are not included. And if you have any specific questions on these, I can try to answer them.
A lot to digest. Any questions that spring to mind?
Seems like the same old, we're getting rid of RC2 and this, that, and the other thing.
But not as much density created. So I'd say it's a happy change from the same old.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Planning Board. Thank you for Leslie. Thank you for your work. We have next scheduled up a discussion on DIF. How do you want to proceed on that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask at this time that you not spend a lot of time on that. I think we'd probably like a motion to not proceed with that at this time. It's something that we are going to look forward to some further study and bringing it back in the fall if it's something we want to pursue.
Okay.
All right?
Is there, since we have the fount of all knowledge on DIFs here, is there anybody that has some questions after looking at the material that you want to pose to Andrew?
I actually think that's postponing it is a good idea.
Great. Thank you very much. So you'll have your motions on the remaining articles
On the
on
6th,
6th. And I think we have a meeting scheduled on the 6th. And, or the 7th. Okay. All right. So we'll be good.
okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Barry.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. So what looked like a chock-a-block full schedule is now down to 45 minutes, and we have the ability, and I would like us to exercise as much as we can to go through. We identified Articles 1 through 36 that we can discuss and make recommendations on, as well as when I put my notes together, I hadn't realized you guys had already taken up some of the real estate articles, so thank you very much for doing that. We do have 3, if I'm reading this correctly, so FinCom has voted on real estate articles or not? No. Okay, FinCom motion here is move to adopt, so and a vote was,
I think those were draft motions that you put together for us to save us some time, because we didn't have any questions of the real estate,
Okay.
Whatever, the advisory or
Yeah.
assessment committee.
so Articles 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, and 104. Can we take them all as one motion to adopt? Is
So
there any
moved.
objection to doing that? Discussion?
Just want to make sure those are the real estate articles that the real estate assessment, whatever was the committee gave us their recommendations on a couple weeks ago.
I am reading them from Article 95 by Ms. Raghaveen all the way down through Christopher Ray's, and you all had a move to adopt was the draft motion.
Yes, these are the articles
Yep.
from the subcommittee.
From the subcommittee.
I'm fine.
Everybody good? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Does that take into consideration the real estate assessment committee's recommendation?
Yes,
So,
it affirms their recommendation.
so I have Articles 103 and 104, and the real estate acquisition or assessment committee's recommendation for it. I don't want that to be a part of the article. This is where I
Please come up to the microphone and identify yourself.
Christopher Ray. I have citizen articles 103 and 104. The Real Estate Assessment Committee's decision from
Okay, you've got your microphone up. Yeah, go ahead.
from January 30th, 2017. They had a positive recommendation on the acquisition and disposition. On the disposition, we recommended that portion of the land that abuts the Boy Scout property be open space and that an 8-foot easement be retained. I was hoping to have the 8-foot easement be stricken. The Boy Scout land is 100 acres plus or minus, all in contiguous ownership, so they don't need an easement or a right-of-way in said Scott's Way for access. They have all their land except for one chunk is all connected. So I don't see a need or a reason for an 8-foot easement to be granted along Scott's Way.
Did you bring this up to the real estate assessment committee?
No, I tried to get a hold of them and figure out their meeting schedule. The town website had nothing about them. It does now. So I did not attend this meeting, unfortunately, because it was not advertised where I could find it.
It's something you'd want to amend on town meeting floor anyway, seeing it's already.
So I guess the dilemma that we have is that we depend upon the real estate committee, so, you know, I'm not sure our committee knows enough about the situation to remove or
Okay.
disagree with the real estate committee. That's why they were put together. It's unfortunate that you haven't had a chance to meet with them, and I don't know how frequently they meet. I know they met in mid-January. Do they meet? Libby, I'm looking at you. Do they have a meeting every month?
They meet as needed. I don't know when their next meeting is, but if there is a next meeting, it will be posted. I'm trying to pull up the warrant that I sent you all the other day,
Yeah.
and I don't know if this article has anything in the motion to what Mr. Ray is talking about.
It does end, which may include the reservation of easements and restrictions. So passage of the article wouldn't require the Board of Selectmen to reserve the easement,
And
but
I
it
think
may.
it's standard language to say that.
Okay.
It wouldn't be so standard to specify 8 feet, but I don't, it doesn't, does it?
No, the motion does not specify 8 feet or any.
So the real estate committee's recommendation is 8 feet. It's up to the discretion of the.
If the action we just took was to ratify this draft motion, we didn't include anything about 8 feet for an easement.
Rick?
Just one thought on this one is the board, I recollect, wanted a chance to review some of the real estate committee's recommendations at our meeting as well, which we haven't done yet. And most of these are not very consequential. I mean, we still have a lot of these are in Surfside and that kind of stuff. I think that this one is a little different, and you might want to pass over making a motion on Scott's Way until the Board of Selectmen has had a chance to consider the real estate committee's recommendation on an easement and how important that might be to be specific in an article or not. So that's one thought for you.
Thank you.
Where does that leave us?
Where does it leave you? I'm about to ask if there's anybody on the committee who would like to amend our and pull out the articles that you are a sponsor for, as Mr. Atherton has suggested that the Board of Selectmen would like a chance to review it. I think you, if I'm correct, Rick, you're saying that other than those two, you're comfortable with the actions of the Real Estate Committee, so somebody would need to propose that we amend our motion to go from Article 95 through Article 102.
I'm going to make a motion to reverse last motion and remove 103 and 104.
Is there any second to that?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Okay. So now, I guess we need a motion on Articles 94 through 102 to adopt.
Oh, so we eliminated the first motion, because I thought you were just moving that we amend it to
Right.
drop out the
Oh,
two.
okay. Then in which case we're
We're good.
good. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Ray,
Yes.
your next venue is with the Board of Selectmen. They would like to have the ability to make a comment on this, so I would urge you to look at their agenda, and which you can have pushed to you if you sign up, and be in attendance, and I suspect they'd be happy to hear you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So back to the top of the list. Brian, or do we have articles here that we can, you're comfortable with us moving forward on adopting is and I guess the question, Rick, to you all, are we getting ahead of you?
Well, I think the comments that Andrew made about the diff article was one area I had concern on, and I think with that taken off for the time being, we're not as far ahead as you might have been.
Okay.
I think most of the articles you're acting on are ones that we're going to be in concert with, is my guess.
So just procedurally, Libby, can we approve articles that don't have money attached to them yet?
Really?
I've been trying to pull up my warrant I sent you, but
Can we do
it's
that?
running into the road, so I can't get at it. But I think most of the ones that didn't have numbers were pretty much ready to go. And more became ready to go today, but I didn't have the chance to really revise them. I think I will be able to have a new draft for you for Thursday, with some stuff taken care of, like, for example, the Island Home motion was approved by bond council today. Collective bargaining articles should be all set now. No question about those. So I'll be removing some of the yellow.
So on the collective bargaining articles, we're going to just make a motion not to.
Not ready.
They're not ready, so
Whatever.
take no action.
Yeah.
With the standard comment that they're not ready, I think that's how we've done it in the past. Okay.
David?
Yeah.
I'm not sure which ones you wanted to vote on, but I did have a question. I think it's on Articles 18 and 19. We had a comment at the public hearing from some, I think the owner of one of the properties on Drew Lane objected to the wording of that article because it called for charging a betterment to those property owners for connecting to the sewer, as opposed to being extended the same arrangement that other plus parcel homeowners have access to. And I just didn't know whether, as FinCom, we have anything to say about that or not, but they did complain about it, and this gentleman complained about it, and several neighbors came up to me afterwards and sort of complained about it.
So I think the selectmen addressed this issue last week, specifically. I think many of us have heard from the owners. I think if Libby and Rick, if I've got this incorrect, please correct me, that there was a consensus that these properties would go into the district under the terms of the Monomoy Plus with no betterment charge. The issue is, and we have, we can recommend taking the language out or keeping it in. I think the issue, at least for one selectman, and certainly would be for me, is not to set a precedent. So to do a waiver on Drew Lane and Gardner and Shakamo, they're going to go into the district. But if you have somebody, a year from now in another part of the island that wants to come into the district, I think we need to be careful that we haven't inadvertently opened up the opportunity for everybody who wants to tag into the system to do it at no expense.
Okay.
Are you following me?
Well, I follow the logic. I'm not sure I entirely agree with it, but I follow the logic.
So I think part of the issue is, the other part of the issue, or as development takes place and developers develop property, if there is no way for the town to charge a betterment, and is just automatically going to go on to the tax, be an obligation of all the taxpayers, then, we may have inadvertently opened Pandora's box to a problem that we perhaps didn't see a year ago.
Okay.
Unintended consequence, I guess. But if we want to, if there's a sense on the committee to, put some language in the form of a comment, it's, we certainly can do that as to how we want to handle it.
I mean, I guess again, and I don't know all the facts about this particular set of properties, but my impression from what the folks said was that, they were either abutting or part of the neighborhood that were already being sewered, and I don't know if they wanted to connect or whether the town encouraged them to connect, and they want, so their question was why they have to pay a betterment if their neighbors don't. I certainly understand if the town is extending the sewer to some other development, that charging a betterment or paying for that capital cost ought to be either the developer or the homeowner. But if these are sort of in the mix and just have the ability to connect, I just felt like they should get the same deal as their neighbors. So.
And I think the Board of Selectmen affirmed that, so we have two members here.
So the action specifically was to add them to the sewer district, so they did not have to go to a higher threshold. So I think that sewer commission they met the checklist, and they were able to get on with a majority vote rather than that was really isn't that the focus?
Yeah, yes, and the issue about the betterment came to the board as well, and
the issue on betterments, and I believe one of your members was supportive of putting them in the district under the terms of a year ago, as long as the language stayed in and left it to the discretion of the sewer commissioners as to whether a betterment is going to be charged or not, in which case you've said you're not going to charge a betterment. It looks like you have the ability to do that the way the language is written. And your member was concerned about setting a precedent.
Yeah, no, right.
And so I'm really echoing that in my comments. And the language here says that you as acting as Board of Sewer Commissioners to assess all or a portion of the project cost as betterment. So if you as Sewer Commissioners decide not to assess the cost,
Can you just make a comment?
yes, please.
Just maybe to try and make a general comment to take it away from the gentleman on Drew Lane, whom we all know. I mean, I know the gentleman well. I think what you have to start thinking about as the Finance Committee and the board acting as sewer commissioner or as the Board of Selectmen is that wherever you have the existing boundaries, and you could find someone coming in next year, and we can take the Pulpus Road example, and you go across the street from Drew Lane, there are houses, boom, boom, boom. And a lot of the logic that applies to the Drew Lane properties applies to the properties across the street. And then once the line starts moving down the street, it keeps on applying, one lot at a time, it seems to me. So you have to start thinking about where this all is going to lead you. And then you have to leave Pulpus Road and go to other areas on the edges. Hawthorne Lane is a good example because the Hawthorne Lane project is a developer project, and the assumption is the developer will pay for all the sewer infrastructure in that project. But there will be people across the street on Hawthorne Lane who are going to be required to hook up. And that's a little bit different because it's not a betterment. I don't know how the line is going to run on Hawthorne. If it's going to run down Hawthorne Lane, then the people across the street could be required to hook up, assuming there are houses there. But those kind of situations are going to keep popping up, And I think the community, given the way we voted on Monomoy and the taxpayer paying, is going to have to figure out how each one of those situations gets addressed. So.
Hi, Peter Brace. Peter Brace, Chairman of the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. We have a meeting here at 5. Are you guys almost done? We were told by Erica Mooney to schedule our meetings for February 7th and March 7th, starting at 6, because you guys had the room. So today's the 21st. Wasn't told that you guys were going to be here past 5.
Yeah, we normally go from 4 to 6, Peter.
Okay, we're normally here at 5 o'clock, and I wasn't told to reschedule for this date.
Yeah. Is there space upstairs?
I don't know that, but it's kind of improper because then it's not posted for us to be upstairs. You what?
I was about to say Guns or Knives. Remember that scene from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? Yeah, let Jim make a comment.
Just a comment, the board is not going to have a meeting on March 1st, and so tomorrow is the only night but we can discuss your motions before we have to take a vote on them, or on the 8th. I mean, we're discussing some on the 8th, so to the extent you have more, so we're going to be reviewing what you've already voted on tomorrow night, but if you do have a few more you might vote on, that'd be wonderful.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, oh, please.
I just want a clarification on this precedent thing. We're worried about creating a legal precedent within the motion that would be, or just setting a tone for future? What are we talking about when we talk about precedent setting?
I want to punt to my dear friend in the row in the blue sweater. I think that what... go ahead, Rick.
Well, I think just to be, let's all be frank about this. I suspect on our board, I'm going to be in a minority, so that it's highly possible, if this issue continues, that the betterment phrase might come out. I don't know. But to me, it was more a question of throwing that to town meeting. And I may be wrong on, and let town meeting think about it, much the way they had to do with the Monomoy, Shimo, plus parcels, okay? And I think, let me just add one other thing. Another thing connected to all of this is the sewer regulation, so that if you own a property and you want to sell your property, there's a real question here whether you want to sell it with sewer or do you want to sell it with a IA system. In either case, it could cost you money, but if the town paid for the sewer and all you have to do is pay for the hookups and you get all the privileges of being on the sewer when you sell your property, that's all related to what's going on here to new properties coming into the sewer system. If we could separate Drew Lane out and just pretend it didn't have any further implications, that might be very nice. But I think there is a principle that someone like Drew Lane maybe should be charged a betterment. And that's why, at least I feel the language should stay in there. So
I'm satisfied. Clearly the Board of Selectmen has thought about this and has proposed a solution. And again, I don't know the gentleman on Drew Lane. I just wanted to make sure that we, the town government, had dealt with this appropriately, and I'm fine.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm still not a little unclear. When you talk about doing this and making a comment, were you saying that we'd make a specific motion relative to the betterment and making a comment about it being a precedent, or not make a specific motion about the betterment and have a comment about the betterment. I just was confused about what.
I think I was referring to making a comment about the betterment and how it should be treated on this particular set of properties.
So is what we're then saying is that
Go ahead.
the issue of the betterment would be left open to the sewer commissioners post-town meeting with a sense that they kind of were okay with no betterment on this, or would town meeting, would the betterment issue be specifically handled at town meeting in one way or another? I guess it might through amendment the way it was last time. There was an amendment made specific to the betterment, right, and that's kind of what carried. But absent a amendment, the town meeting voters and the homeowners would still leave unsure about whether there was a betterment or not.
Well, they would leave knowing that it's up to the sewer commissioners
Right,
to
but unsure
decide
about the
on,
outcome of that.
the outcome, yes.
And I think that's fine.
And I think the language, I've come around to feeling that the language could be 0 or it could be 100%, you know, the way it's written, and the sewer commissioners are going to make that decision, or with help and input from the community.
And the thing, I mean, relative to the gentleman's comments and the lawyer that came and said, you know, Jesus doesn't seem fair. And town meeting did sort of create, you know, that area, and this is kind of connected to it, and town meeting voted. The idea is just to give town meeting a chance to revisit that as it relates to these.
I would hope they wouldn't, but I think that, you know, it opens up the issue that Rick's talking about, which is you flip over to the other side of Pulpus Road and you just keep going and going. I mean, once you...
Don't we want people on the sewer?
Yeah, I'm not sure we want them on without paying a betterment fee.
Okay, I'm sorry, again.
No, I mean, I think,
I'm going to invoke my new guy status right through this
Oh,
town meeting, and then I'll
keep-
stop as I try to work out how this all works. I mean, then we're back to this, is it a precedent issue, and what does that really mean, being a precedent? Right.
Well, I think the precedent is that, you know, you start to allow people to come into the district without paying a betterment fee on sort of these one-off, onesie, twosies. You know, we haven't created a new district or you know, similar to the Hawthorne Lane. You know, is our precedent when we have one or two properties that want to be part of the district or part of the sewer system? Do they get in without a betterment fee because nobody else is paying a betterment fee, or should they pay a betterment fee? They weren't originally part of the district, now they want to be in. And that's the precedent, I think, that, you know, we're trying to, the thin line we're trying to walk.
Yeah, couldn't you argue that town meeting set a precedent the other way, at the last town meeting?
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's where I'm getting a little hung up on with this notion of.
well, and,
I guess my instinct was where I thought you were starting, which was to say, okay, the precedent is there, you know, all of their neighbors were treated a certain way. Why are we reversing that precedent?
well, I mean, I guess the way I interpret this is, you know, the town, you know, the article was created, the projects were described, and town meeting voted on the Shimo, Monomoy, whatever we call it, and plus parcels, and it was amended at town meeting to have them all paid without betterments to be funded by the tax base. I happen to think that was a good outcome, and whether it's a precedent or not, I don't know. But those were two major projects with defined boundaries. And I guess I'm buying Rick's argument that you have to leave the sewer commissioners some discretion because you have a defined boundary, and then every abutter will become, you know, if you keep letting people in, I don't know whether those increase costs to the town or not, but you have to give the sewer commissioners, it seems to me, the responsibility and the right to decide where they want to draw a line.
Sure. Please.
So, Libby, the sewer commissioners assess betterments, right?
You can,
I mean, that's the group.
yeah.
So I think at town meeting with that big project, they did it because it was a lot more money. I mean, it affects the borrow, you know, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But the jurisdiction over setting betterments lies with the sewer commissioners. This article basically continues that and continues that authority. And it doesn't.
So just to muddy the waters even more, but because you're going to be involved in this on an ongoing basis, So one thought on the betterment issue would be to have a comment that would leave the language in, leave it up to the Board of Sewer Commissioners to assess the betterment or not. And then the party at issue here can continue to lobby those people, and they'll make whatever decision they make, and then he'll make whatever decision he makes. That's one way to leave that there. But another issue you should be aware of, we also have on the books what's called a capacity fee. And I hope I have this right. The theory on the capacity fee was that people outside the sewer district whose sewer usage, if they were included, was not included in the capacity to increase the capacity of the Surfside wastewater treatment plant, would pay an extra fee. Now, I hope, does that make sense to everybody? So we are up to, 4,200 million gallons a day or whatever it is. But essentially that means you can take into the existing capacity of Surfside, let's pretend 1,000 parcels. Anybody more than 1,000 parcels, we're going to have to think about recapturing money to increase the capacity down there. So the board established a capacity fee to start getting that money back in advance. So we could still take some people in, but they would put up, I think it was like $13,000. There's a formula, the more bedrooms on your lot, the more your fee. One way to think about this matter is that I think these lots, and by the way, we've never assessed the capacity fee. I think these lots might qualify for that. And any other lots that come in under similar circumstances, and that might help us deal with some of the peripheral issues surrounding what's going to happen on a lot by lot by lot, because eventually you'd have to pay a lot of money to increase Surfside to take care of them.
So, does the Board of Sewer Commissioners, the Board of Selectmen acting as sewer commissioners, did you take a vote the other night to accept these folks in?
Yes.
At no charge, no betterment charge?
Yes, you did. Well,
No.
Not with no betterment.
but no betterment
Yeah, they're in, but with the same
language.
language as
Yeah.
given, that's in this article, which is up to, it allows for the range, but still
Okay.
allows the Board of Selectmen to make that decision.
And so you will adjudicate at some point in the future on
At some point.
Now I'm confused about the comment you made about it's within your, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
That's one of the charges of the sewer commission.
Except that my recollection of the last town meeting was that this board was very specific about the betterment in its recommendation. So it can work both ways, because I think this board had recommended a 25% betterment fee. So this board does do that. It's not that.
we could make a, we could add a comment.
Yeah, okay.
We could make a
I
recommendation.
just want to be clear that we weren't sort of taking something away.
Yeah, I mean, we could recommend striking the language.
Yeah.
We could make a recommendation on a charge or no charge. We can do whatever we want as far as that goes. If people don't like what we've
Okay.
proposed, then we can do that. Or we can just, vote to adopt and let the sewer commissioners, fight it out with the homeowners.
David, just as a point of clarification, in the warrant that Liddy sent us, I think today, we do have language in there that is highlighted and does authorize the Board of Selectmen acting as the sewer commissioners to assess all or a portion of the betterments.
Right.
So I just want to be sure that we're all on the same page here.
We are, and we
Okay.
are totally, we have total liberty to change what's been sent to us
Okay, this is just a draft.
to facilitate us in our deliberations. Well, I'm not sure, Mr. Kelly, we're really helping you here, but let's do a few do we, on this issue with Drew Lane and the others, do we want to make, is there an appetite to make a motion to adopt with a comment? How would people like to proceed on this?
Make a motion to adopt with no comment, and just,
Okay.
I said, we have enough commissions and enough people appointed to make these decisions.
This is a Board of Selectmen sponsored article? I mean, these properties were identified because they meet the checklist, and it's been determined they belong in the sewer district, and it's kind of an oversight that they weren't included last year? Is that where we are?
It's just where the line was drawn, and they were on the other side of it.
Right, but I mean, they're identified on a comprehensive wastewater management plan update adopted June 3rd, 2015. So, I mean, presumably somebody saw the need, they just weren't included last year. Who knows why? And we're fixing an error. Then I think they should be treated the same way the people were last year.
Well, that was certainly my impression, was that these were particular lots that, again, only from what the fellow on Drew Line, that
Yeah,
all other things being equal, they would have been drawn into the same box as all the other plus parcel lots or whatever.
I think-
And the town wants them in, not so much that they're trying to get in.
Right. So I think that's a material difference, and I think the date of this wastewater management plan update is also a difference. I mean, if we have a plan dated after the approval of the sewer extension in Monomoy and Shimo, then that's a different thing. That's an easy thing to point to and say, here's why you're treated differently,
Right.
because you weren't identified beforehand.
So would you like to see that reflected in a comment?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in support of the commentary submitted from the citizen.
Support of the commentary that's, I'm missing that.
Pardon me?
He's in support of the commentary that,
Yeah, the citizen commentary that we all have seen
Okay.
from the owner of 2 Drew Lane, that he wants to be treated the same way all these other parcels were. And if you think about it, not as being treated as the parcels that were included last year, but as the parcels that were also included on the June 3rd, 2015 plan, then I think it makes more sense.
Mr. Chairman, can I just point something out? This isn't an error, okay? When the CWMP that came out, these parcels were included in the Nantucket Harbor Shakmo area, but because of their proximity to the Nantucket Harbor Shimo area that is being done, this was something that was discussed last year, and these, I forget how many parcels it is, 4 or 5 or whatever it is. It was discussed last year about adding them to the sewer district after this project was, we couldn't add them at the time of the town meeting vote because it would have expanded we couldn't do it. So it's not really an error. It was just they were already in a sewer, they were in another needs area, but because of the proximity to this area, it was agreed that we should just move them into this area and proceed to take care of it. So it's not really an error, more as a just where the line was drawn when they did the needs areas originally.
I'm not sure that changes your underlying point.
It doesn't, and I apologize for calling it a mistake, but it doesn't change my thought on it.
I agree. And so I guess, given that, my preference would be something stronger than just a comment, that we would go ahead and propose it at 0 betterment and not leave that up to chance after town meeting. But I think you have the motion.
so that would just be a comment. That wouldn't in any way alter you'd have to make a motion to change what's written
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. That would be my preference.
at town meeting. Right, our comment's not
No,
going to change that.
No, but it would be direction to the sewer commissioners.
Okay.
And they have, under the language, they have the ability to charge no better.
Right. Yeah, or whatever.
So you had a motion, we didn't have a second. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm confused in the process of what we're doing. I mean, once it's, I'm always under the understanding, once it's written, I mean, that kind of stuff has to be changed. So
We would take a motion to adopt with a comment
Okay.
that reflects what Chris and.
Or just
Steve-
edit the highlighted part of the last 3 lines, to direct or suggest to the Board of Selectmen acting as Board of Sewer Commissioners not to assess the project costs as betterments. I mean, that's how we would do it. I'm not suggesting that that's what you want to do, but that's how it's possible.
I'm just confused as maybe as a FinCom, I guess we're making a comment to it. So we're making a comment in a sense, but we're just making our motion is to adopt it and giving guidance.
And giving guidance,
Okay.
which is how we've traditionally handled comments. I mean, there are opinions.
I mean, I guess I feel if the preponderance of the evidence is that these particular properties are functionally or legally
Right.
equivalent to the
Right.
folks that were already in the properties adopted in the article, then I think they should be treated the same. If the Board of Sewer Commissioners believes that they are sufficiently different, the across the street analogy that Rick talked about, then I guess they should have the flexibility to charge them a betterment or a fee or whatever if they think that's a more appropriate way to deal with the costs stemming from including them in the sewer district.
And it seems to
I'm
me they
reluctant
would
to sit
have
here and
that
try to
latitude,
parse it
right?
ourselves. I mean, it seems,
Yeah.
I would like to give the selectmen
Well,
flexibility to do that.
I think no matter what our motion is, the Board of Sewer Commissioners will have the latitude to assess whatever fees and betterments they want to, right?
So go
Brian?
with the,
Is that right?
It just seems like that's where, like I said before, that's where we drew the line for that district, and they were in another district, and now the guy wants to come in because he felt he was left out, but.
No, but he doesn't want to come in. The town says, because we're running the pipe right next to you,
Yeah.
even though we considered you to be a part of a neighboring district before, now we're considering you to be a part of the same district. And now not only would we like you to connect, we're compelling you to connect.
Okay.
So to me, we just drew the line in the wrong place. Shakamo and Shimo, the line should have been one parcel over, or one parcel over in 2 areas.
All right, then I guess I'd support the comment. I'd like a motion to adopt with the comment as suggested, whatever it was.
second.
To not, yeah.
Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That was to adopt with the highlighted language?
I think that was to adopt with the highlighted language amended to say, to authorize the Board of Selectmen acting as Board of Sewer Commissioners not to assess project costs as betterments. Is that right, Cliff? That's,
Yes.
I think, what we were talking about. Yeah.
I thought you were saying you'd leave the language as is, but then we would have a FinCom comment. So
Right.
that's the-
Oh, okay.
That is-
So we're not amending the motion, just as a comment.
Well, that's what I mean, you can't amend it.
How about some language in your comment that's something like, we recommend to the Board of Selectmen acting as sewer commissioners that given the specific historical facts of this case, we recommend that they not impose betterments. Would that
We've
help
done
do
this
it?
before.
I like that. You should email that to somebody. You should think that up.
For this case.
Not sure. I'm sorry I brought that up or not, but.
Thank you, Rick. We will end up with something that's succinct and to the point. It takes us a little while to get there. So, all right. The map changes Article 19, given our theme with being, or did we just comment on Article 19?
Yeah, I think we just did 18. So but 19 looks like a companion.
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
that's what the language was in 19.
I think 18 has to do with money. 19 has to do with the sewer district map.
So, I thought that we were dealing with Article 19, and that's what we dealt with. 18's got money associated with it and is a little bit broader.
Right, well, 18's got the betterment language. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
All right, so that's what we approved. 19 is a map. So we're adding the following, adding those parcels to the Shimo infill area.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody who would like to have a discussion about this, or can we move to a motion?
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and no comment, is that correct?
Correct.
Um, I'm jumping around here trying to find, make sure that we have articles that already have money attached to them. That we could,
We do the ambulance reserve fund?
do the what?
Ambulance reserve fund, that must have its money attached.
Article 21.
It does not.
Needs
Does it
a
need
number,
number?
I think that,
Almost everything needs a number. 26? you can-
yeah, 26 is
We
the
know
trust
the ambulance
fund.
reserve fund was.
And OPEB has no number attached to it, does it?
OPEB's got 500,000.
Okay.
26 does.
All right. So let's take Article, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the $500,000. If you recall, we had some lengthy discussion with the folks from the trust fund, or a surrogate. I guess Ms. Williams came in instead of the chairman, and we were concerned at the time about a lack of strategic direction. Their request had been reduced from $1 million down to $500,000. They are getting money from the CPC, and I don't know that there's been anything since then related to a strategic direction. And I don't. So, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Was that reduced even more down to 400,000?
I think that's CPC.
That's the CPC allocation.
number.
Oh. So they haven't come back to us.
I'm not sure that we asked them to, but I certainly at the time we were having the discussion, there was a sense that we wanted to see some progress made on what they were going to do, something more formal than.
Which they were also supposed to report to the Board of Selectmen, weren't they?
Yeah, I think the board has to parse out this money anyway.
So we're still waiting.
Well, maybe Rick remembers, but I think that last year for the million, the board said we'll recommend the million, but if you want to make any, whenever you want to make any expenditures out of it, you have to come back of over 100,000. So that doesn't say this here, really.
I don't think the board, my recollection, we're going by memory, is that
Yeah.
that specific requirement was inserted last year at our direction,
Right.
and we did not take the same action this year.
Okay.
We did ask for a budget, we asked to, how are you going to spend the money, much the way you did, but not specifically item by item.
I'd like to support, I mean, I think we can support this, in that the need is still there. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund can rotate in leadership, people can come in and out, but money is still desperately needed, and if these people can't produce, then they're leaving themselves vulnerable to get voted off. And so be it, but at least the money can still be there for someone else who comes in and does the right thing. I guess I just can't be part of something that, even with their lack of direction, and trust me, I'm I'm not happy about it, but the issue is starting, and it needs money to fix it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't give them what they need. I don't want anyone pointing fingers back at me or this board at least saying that we are not doing everything we can to solve the affordable housing issue, which it really is not a whole lot of plans to be. Maybe we can add a comment that we expect something, we expect to see some sort of plan or some sort of staffing, I think. Then that was my biggest concern, is they just didn't use the available money that they had to hire any sort of staff to pursue any sort of grants. So if we can make a comment to that effect, that they're giving this money in the hope that we see more grant applications at the very least. I just don't think because a couple people were disorganized that the institution as a whole deserves not to receive money.
I mean, I guess I'll speak in support as well. I mean, I have some sort of similar current concerns in terms of some of the plans are a little less well fleshed out than you would like, given how much money they've been granted by the town and recommended by the CPC. But again, this is probably more hearsay than it is anything. But I certainly know Tucker Holland. I've heard him describe the plans of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I know that a lot of their dry powder is being held in abeyance for how the Six Fairgrounds development sort of plays out, which I think is a good direction for the town. It would be nice if we knew exactly how they're going to spend all this money, but I think they've got some good things out there that they're trying to hold their resources for. So net, I'm happy with the $500,000.
Okay, any other?
Yeah, I guess I don't want to repeat, but I will say I'm another reluctant supporter, only because I feel like coming to this a little bit sort of halfway through, and it's such a complex issue, but I do think that something's got to change before next year, or we don't want to be sitting here with another $500,000, another $1 million. And another comment I'd like to make is I think there's some excellent guidance in the Housing Production Plan document about further integration of the CPC and the Housing Trust. And my own view going into next year would be I would love to see the CPC and the Housing Trust much more integrated, and a great focus of using those funds to fund this, because I think those are the right funds to use, and certainly the other agendas of the CPC. Relative to other communities that have one, open land and historical preservation is not a real issue for us. Probably an issue for other people. This is a real issue for us, and so sorry if I'm grandstanding, not relevant to the vote, but I think going back and visiting that language in that document and seeing how there can be great integration there would be a great idea. And otherwise would say, okay, $500,000 one more year, but
yeah. So a couple of things on that. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund used a lot of the money that went into creating the housing production plan was from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So that's one deliverable that they have given us.
Fair enough.
And then in the context of CPC funds, I just will echo your thought that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund should make themselves available for more CPC funds. Put in the context of a $250,000 appropriation for window repair for existing units. $500,000 isn't a whole heck of a lot of money. And then I guess also in context of the dire need that the community has and that the town has for sustainable workforce and affordable housing, $500,000 isn't enough. I hope that they take this money, use what they have left over, which is a considerable sum, and come back with more deliverables, more concrete plans, such that this committee can support more money next year.
I'd agree.
Ready for a motion?
Motion to adopt, number 26.
Second.
Any comment? Personally, I would like to see a comment along the lines of what we've just been talking about. I don't think we should be here a year from now wondering what.
I think the comment is the sense of the board to produce a strategic plan on how to, let's just say, put shovels to dirt. I don't want to hear conceptually anymore. I want plans.
And I think Chris has got great comments about better integration.
Yeah. So we could further that to say, opening them up to more CPC funding. And also just more grants in general. I mean, as an aside, I took some time off to write some housing grants last winter, and we got $40,000. I mean, they're out there.
Yeah.
So I think, again, to see them staff their organization with someone whose job it is now full-time to be pursuing these CPC, remain, whoever it is, they need to have someone more than just on a volunteer basis.
So who's writing the comment?
I'll volunteer.
Want to volunteer to write the comment? Okay, great. Thanks very much,
Thanks.
Joe. We ready for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Just moving down, OPEB. I think we have historically, over the past couple of years, we've been doing $500,000. I think that's our motion, what we talked about. Any discussion about that, changing that? Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt? Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I just had a question. For Brian, do we get direction from somebody? Is $500,000 sort of just a figure that we like because it's a round number, or do we get direction from a fund manager who says this is what your contribution should be if we're going to?
I think our contribution theoretically should be much more, and that's what we're comfortable doing at this point in time.
Okay.
But it's totally a voluntary
It is voluntary.
on our part.
No, I understand that. I think it's great we're doing something, but
Yeah.
to hear that it should be much more, times are times are good for the town right now, so if this is what we're comfortable with today, it doesn't bode well for the future when times are not so good.
Existing retirees are paid sort of out of the same self-insurance pool anyway, right? I mean, we're not drawing on the OPEB funds to pay for retired employees.
Absolutely. We're not even close to taking that consideration. There's only, after this is authorized and it goes in, there will be about $1.9 million in that.
Right. So
We're very far away.
so we are paying as we go.
We're paying this
Are we going to see a number from the Airport Commission on their stabilization fund?
I can tell you what it is. It's $200,000. It's actually going to be, and it will be coming from the airport fuel revolving.
So do we recall the Airport Commission talking about this? They're trying to set up some sort of stabilization fund for when people retire, that they're not, otherwise it doesn't hit their operating budget.
Yeah. Did we vote on number 27?
We did, didn't we?
I don't know. Should we do it again?
I think we did.
I don't think we did.
Thank you for.
If we did,
Is there a motion to adopt Article 27?
We had the motion,
I think-
second, then we just comment. We didn't-
Right, that's what I did.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for reining me in here.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Protein. I think it's liquid, Peter. Thank you. Stabilization fund for the airport, are you comfortable voting knowing that it's going to be $200,000? It's not written down.
Yes.
Any further discussion on that? Get a motion.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Discussion? We will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That'll be for $200,000. Articles 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. All of these are collective bargaining articles. None of them will be ready. It is our policy that if they're not ready a month ahead of time, we're at that point. Historically, we have taken no action when they're not ready.
So I'll make a motion to adopt the draft motions and comments as written.
Which is to take no
which is to take no action, and then the comment that negotiations were not completed.
And that's on Articles 26 through 35.
29.
Is there, pardon me?
29.
29.
I'm sorry, thank you. Is there a second
Second.
comment? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, done those. Do we want to, I'm going to jump away from these and over to Articles 105, 106, and 107, which are the conveyance articles for Pleasant Street, Tacoma Way, and East Creek Road. They're a citizens petition article. The Real Estate Advisory Committee opted not to weigh in on these. And we seem to, I thought maybe from my notes, a conflicting bit of information. Did we act on these a while ago or not?
My notes reflected that you did, and that's why I put the motions in with no highlighting, but I could be wrong.
I thought we did, only because I'm remembering some back and forth from
Mhm.
Catherine, where she said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, I'm fine. Where we sort of came to agreement with her based on the stuff that was going on.
Yeah, she was going to draft her.
Okay, so those are done. That, my recollection is we did act on them. Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
I don't think I was here for that meeting. So.
Okay.
But they were all not to adopt, so I assume?
Yes. And that piece of her petition is going to be on the ballot?
Yep.
It did make it? Okay. So that's the situation where she's going to, the voters are going to opine on that. Okay. Anything else that's back up in the beginning that's got money attached to it? How do you want to handle our island home? Go to our meeting on March, first meeting in March on that?
Yeah, I don't suggest that we should take any action today.
Okay.
I would recommend to anybody who's looking for something to do to attend the Island Home Building Work Group meetings, or I guess Cliff, probably the other Island Home Work Group would be very informative also. It's a hugely important issue for us all to wrap our heads around, and it's a lot to learn. It's a lot of information for the town to try to get out to the voters before town meeting. So if you have the time and you can attend the meetings and you can be a voice for the project, it would be appreciated by all.
Oh, all right. Well, why don't we stop with these? There are a couple of committees I'd like to hear about, and we can talk about our meeting on Thursday, and then we'll adjourn. So, Peter, why don't we start with you on the Capital Committee? You met on the water company building. For those of us that don't yet know the outcome.
So yes, we did, the capital committee met, and all people who were in attendance, we had the commissioners there, we had Bob and his team, we had 5 sitting capital committee program members. After going back and forth a little bit, the vote was 3 against 2 to approve the use of $1.5 million in retained earnings to be put towards the project to go forward with the project. So that was the vote.
Peter, I got to your meeting a little bit late. Did you all have a chance to review the floor plans of the building or discuss at all the program and the reasons why the building is necessary at any price?
That's where, I mean, you'll be hearing more of my feelings. The answer is not really. There's really been no value engineering done to the building. It was presented because it was just availed to not only the commissioners and Bob himself a few weeks prior. We received it, and they accepted it as that's what's going to fulfill their needs. So there hasn't really been any value engineering done on the building. Still, we asked Bob why are we increasing the size of the building, and most of the answers that were provided were geared towards customer relations with ratepayers coming in and discussing their bills and the need for more conference room space or more private space to fulfill those conversations.
Okay, so it was similar to similar level of detail, would you say, to what Bob was able to give us at our meeting a few weeks ago?
If you consider that detail, yes, that's correct.
Well, I mean, the level of detail being not much.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see in your committee packet that there were floor plans or elevations or any scope of the building.
No, that we had site plans. We did have floor plans. I don't recall myself looking at elevation shots of the building, but there were floor plans and parking plans and. Go, please.
Peter, there was a question of Bob when he presented to us as to whether it made more sense to hold off on this plan until the new general manager was hired. Did your commission deal with that at all?
Well, as you know, Gene, that was a question that I raised here at the FinCom level. That was not raised at the Capcom program. I mean, myself professionally, and my commentary and my questions at the meeting were about the fiduciary responsibility not only of the FinCom and Capcom and Board of Selectmen and Commissioners. When you look at the entire town of Nantucket and you try to figure out the 1.5, or for that matter, the 3.5, and where that stands in comparison to all other projects, to me, it feels like it's at the bottom to create that much new space. I went back into the Capcom meetings of 2014 and looking at our agendas and our minutes. I was part of the original conceptual when it first came to in 2014. It was at that $3.5 million level. We had asked questions at the time, which are in the minutes. Are you going to go from 11 employees to 13 employees? That was a question that was raised by Tobias Glidden. And emphatically, the answer came back, no, we will stay at the 11. Well, one thing that we've seen in our operating budget going forward was the request to go to 13, which is subsequently has been reduced by 1 back down. So we've seen some ups and downs of the project and of the operating budget. So as I look at the merits of the project itself, I just think that, once again, if you look at the other departments, it's not, in my mind, a crucial part. We're not talking about life safety. We're not talking about ADA. We're not talking about making school lunches. It's a garage with some administrative space that easily a 37-year-old building, in my eyes, is not an old building that we could put operating monies towards making capital betterments into that building without batting an eye and making it last another 37 years. So that's just my opinion, and unfortunately that was 2 of 5 that voted that way, and 3 voted for the expenditure.
I put this on the agenda for Thursday. We will be asking the water company to come back, and we certainly we can accept the capital committee's recommendation, or we can come up with a different recommendation if we so desire. So we will have that discussion on Thursday. So thank you, Peter. Cliff, the Island Home Work Group, are they coming to closure on a report?
The last time I knew, I was in Oklahoma for 2 weeks, so I'm
That's right, you were being trained. weren't you?
regroup, trying to train me again. So I regrouped this week on Island Home.
Okay. Very good. Stephen, you're on Human Services.
Right. There was some discussion this morning about whether the CRC's report to FinCom would be made this Thursday. I think it was my confusion. I thought it was next week. The chair seems to be ready to present on Thursday. Okay. Well then, Dorothy will be ready on Thursday.
So as soon as we have the report, we'll send it to you.
Okay. Any other committees that we're involved with? Okay. So on Thursday, we're going to hear from our Human Services group. We're going to, Julia, where did my agenda go? We're going to do water company, and I would like us to be prepared to see if we can get through the rest of these motions, which means, can you give us money?
We're going to plow through as many as we can tomorrow all day.
Thank you. We should all be prepared to, if we have, we heard from the planning department, so those we generally either accept. I don't think we've ever not accepted the planning board's recommendations. Oftentimes we have made comments, or increasingly we have made comments. So the appropriate action is probably, unless there's something that we have an opposition to, don't think that the town is moving in the right direction from a fiscal perspective. If you've got things that you want to think we ought to make comments to, keep them in mind, and we'll accommodate. Otherwise, we'll try to get through those as well. Otherwise, I think that's it. It sounds like the diff is going to be postponed. So, can I get a motion to adjourn unless there's other stuff people want to talk about?
So moved.
Second? Thank you.
Aye.
Great. Have a good, we're scheduled to meet on the Monday or Tuesday of the 7th of March.
You're meeting on both the 6th and 7th.
Okay, that's what I thought. And we're going to meet on Thursday.
Thursday is here?